contract talks went on into the evening, and agreed a deal. We shook hands, and it was a Friday night. They said, will you come back Monday when the offices are back open, because it was obviously end of season. So I said, yeah, no problem. Went back to Cork, obviously went on the piss for a few days. Sunday morning, woke up, and I got a phone call in my house back in Cork, and it was Alex Ferguson. He said, listen, would you come and meet me for talks tomorrow? I said, well, I've shook hands with Blackburn. He said, well, don't worry about that. And flew to Manchester on the Monday, and met Brian Kidd. Alex Ferguson had a game of snooker with him, the usual small talk. You know, they told me how great I was, and I believed them. And but the problem was they still hadn't agreed a fee with Forest, so it was all a bit the usual stuff. If there's a few managers here, you know, he talks behind clubs' backs, and they offered me 300,000 a year. It was important because this is the business side of football, you know, and straight away I learned about Man United. It is business as well. So Blackburn were giving me 400,000 a year, and United were offering me 300, and I was on 250 at Forest. So I'm thinking, well, it's not a massive rise, considering it was going to be a kind of a transfer record. So they stalled a little bit and dragged their heels. In the meantime, I did. Blackburn found out, and Kenny Dalglish found out. I kind of agreed to go to United, even though I hadn't kind of signed my deal yet. And he was fuming. Again, I guess it's the other side of it. He was effing and blinding, you're a fucking disgrace, blah, blah, blah. And I said, listen, I'm going on my holidays next week, which I was. I was going to Cyprus with a few lads just to do some sightseeing. And he said, I said, I'm going to Cyprus next week with my mates. I says, when I come back, I'm going to sign for Man United. He says, I'm going to find you. He says, I'm going to come to Ayia Napa and find you. So every bar in Ayia Napa, I was looking over my shoulder waiting for Kenny Dalglish to walk in, and
I've got his achievements in front of me here, Graham. I mean,
we haven't got enough time.
No, amazing. First of all, world class. Of that, there is no doubt.
Most definitely, yeah.
Best you've played with?
Yeah, I played in a friendly once in Italy where all the top players were there, and I played with Zico. Very different, you know. Yeah, he'd be the best player I played with. Certainly being part of the team, but in a one-off game, I did play with some unbelievably good players when I was in Italy. But Kenny was top class.
What made him stand out? Qualities?
You see, I'm a great believer. People talk about, you know, the tough guys of the game. I believe the tough guys of the game are the strikers, and Kenny was that. You know, they play with their back to where they want to go most of the time. And in those days, centre halves could, you know, take a couple of bits out you before even getting spoken to by the referee. So he would do that. Occasionally got upset if someone caught him, but he very rarely got caught because he was so smart. What couldn't he do? You know, he was a very, very intelligent football player. Would take the ball under pressure. All I would do when I was playing with him, he was in the box, I'd just try to get it to him, to his feet, correct weight, correct angle, and the rest is up to him. Once he could feel a defender tight with him, the defender was dead. He'd just rolled him. He got a shot off, or he'd find space to slip someone in. He was top notch.
Who's the nearest thing to him, Graham, today? Playing the game today?
Well, you know, that role of false number 9 has just been invented in the modern game, I believe. That's what Kenny was. Kenny was a false number 9. Who does that today? No one does it like him, because he would play right up against people. You know, I'm not suggesting he's in his league, but the little boy at Arsenal, Brazilian I got from Man City.
Jesus?
Yeah, he'll get himself backed into people, but he hasn't got the touch that Kenny had, or the vision, but he's brave and a handful. Who is there? There isn't anyone that you would say. See, like Haaland will back into people, but he gets away with it because he's sheer physique.
Yeah.
But Kenny's touch and just feel for things was just so unique. I mean, he was a pain in the ass to play with at times as well, because you imagine, I'm a midfield player. The ball's been played into him from somewhere. He's looking at me. I'm looking at him. I can see what's beyond him. Come on, then, give me. I can see. And he'll turn and do something different, and I'd have words with him, and there'd be an exchange of explicits. And we used to room together, and it must have been the best part of 10 years. I've solid 7 years at Liverpool, and it was just, he was a pain in the ass, but I loved him. I loved him.
Who was there first? You or him? You were there first.
He was there 6 months before me. And he was upset with me because one of his early games was at Middlesbrough. When I was at Middlesbrough, and I caught him. And he wasn't happy with me. He wasn't. He still talks about it today. But it was just a privilege to play with him. You know, you could rattle the ball into him. Maybe not the best at passing. He'd get it out of his feet and find someone. He would chip in with fantastic goals. Rushy must love to play with him. You know, those balls round the corner for Rushy running onto the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
You know, you put a free kick down and say Sammy Lee or me or Jimmy Case would be over the ball, and he'd come over. I said, "Get away! You're not involved. You're not involved." All right, all right. And we'd turn and walk away, Jimmy and I, or Sammy and I, and he'd just take it anyway, and it'd go over the bar, and he'd just shrug his shoulders. And there's occasions, I can remember once in particular where we're playing at Coventry and we're 3-0 down, and at half time, and I've come in and asked, "Is there any danger you can start getting hold of the ball and get started up there?" He came back with, "Any danger you're going to win a tackle to get us started?" And with every sentence, we got closer and closer, and we ended up throwing punches at each other, but none landed. And then the management were all in the dressing room at that time and never intervened. Just let's get on with it. And that we had done their team talk for them.
Yeah.
You know, they said two big players having to go at each other. They didn't have to say anything. Can
you imagine what he'd be worth today, Graham? I mean, Bob Paisley paid a British transfer record of 440 grand for him.
They nicked him. And of course, the big question at that time was how would you replace? Keegan. How were they going to replace Kevin Keegan, who was an absolute superstar? Yeah. And Kenny was the man. Unbelievable in the dressing room. You know, say there's 25 of you in the dressing room and there's some sort of deal coming for the group, and 24 people would agree. There'd be one dissenting voice. It had to be him. I must have had 1,000 debates with him. Not once have I ever ended up with the last word. He should have been Govan Shipyard. He should have been a shop steward. Yeah. He's the most argumentative person you'll ever meet. But,
and his charity work has raised over 10 million.
Yeah, listen, this award, Lifetime Achievement Award, he deserves. He's quite a unique character. His sense of humour sometimes is interesting.
A bit dry.
Interesting.
Yeah, a bit dry.
Scares people.
You're, half century at this stage in football. Kenny, yourself and Alex Ferguson have either butted heads, got along brilliantly, but you've both been alongside each other along most steps of the road. When you go back to when you were teenagers and when you were a teenager and when you first met, what was your first impression of Ferguson?
Well, we've never butted heads, so you can take that one away. Fergie went to Rangers. I was about 18, 19, and I was at Celtic. And Jock Stein, who obviously was a manager, he took a great interest in the kids, and he used to move us about in various positions just so you could get an education of what to expect from the guy that was playing in the position you didn't want to play in. When you went back to your own position, you had a better understanding of what would help him. So I was in that category when I was 18 and played against Fergie a year after he'd signed for Rangers in the reserve game at Celtic Park. And I was centre-back. Big fella at the back here, winning a few headers. I don't think I ever got off the floor. We beat them 2-0. And I think he's still got to come out my pocket every now and again for a bit of air. But I never had a problem with Fergie. He stood his corner for his club. I stood the corner for my club. Fergie and I go back long before anybody here had ever heard of myself or Fergie. When he was in Glasgow, there just seemed to be the thing for footballers or managers to buy a pub when you were in Scotland. So he bought a pub. My father-in-law was in the publican's business, and he taught Fergie the licence trade.
Right.
So he goes back long before the football, or before they knew about him down here. And he's always been somebody you could talk to, approach. But I don't think there's anything wrong with having an argument. If he thinks he's right, he's going to argue he's right. Yeah. And I'm going to argue that I'm right, and I'm going to stand up for my club. And you would expect Fergie to stand up for his. I think you'd be failing in your duties and your responsibilities if you never.
What was life growing up for you and Fergie in Scotland? Were you, as kids, were you always out in the streets playing football, or was that the only thing you kind of did as kids up there, like we did down in Liverpool?
Well, I was brought up in the north side of the city, and Fergie was brought up in the south side. I don't know what like it was for him, but for me, it was exactly what you said. It went in the sporting calendar, depending what was on in the sporting calendar. If it was golf and somebody had a golf club and a ball, you'd be up in the playing fields with the empty Heinz tomato soup can in the ground with some stones. That was a hole, and another one a good bit away. And when it was athletics on, we'd be racing round the block. Tennis, we'd go down to the public park and on the tennis court and hit a tennis ball. Might as well as been a golf ball.
Probably was a golf ball.
And then if there happened to be a match on the telly, there wasn't much of, you bet at half time with your mates and have a wee game during half time on the street. There wasn't as many cars or anything then. And the only time we stopped playing in the street was when the ice cream van came round. So for me, that was just a normal upbringing. And I don't know what Fergie did. He came, as I say, he was born and bred in round about shipyard country.
I want to know who had the tennis racket, because that must have been a posh kid, that, having a tennis racket.
Obviously, you've never been there. You rent them.
Do you ever take them back?
By the way, it was worse if you lost a ball. If you lost a tennis ball, you had to pay for it. We never had any money.
Oh,
you nicked somebody else's.
Kenny was my first idol. I had two. I had Kenny and John Barnes. And I grew up wanting to be Kenny Dalglish. I grew my hair in the back and let it go long because of him. The first Liverpool kit I had, the yellow one, and my mum managed to get a red 7 to put on the back. That yellow kit was iconic for me. I mean, Kenny was a player that I looked at and wanted to be, because he could do special things, as we just heard, the beautiful passes, the benders in the top corner on either foot, and that big smile as well was infectious. Kenny was an idol. So when I actually was fortunate enough to sign for Liverpool and then be around the club and get to meet him, it was a bit surreal, I have to say. Nervous. And then to be comfortable enough to bump into Kenny a couple of times, even later, and then be able to talk to him, seen him many times at various do's, and even walking through shopping centres in the past. It just being able to talk to him on a level and have some sort of respect is from him, and the fact he gave me his time was just something I never dreamt would happen as a kid. But probably the best story with Kenny is that I was at Crewe in my last season, playing really, really well, scoring a lot of goals. I was living at my mum's at the time, and I've told this story before, so I'll keep it brief. But I got a phone call on that landline. I think I had a mobile, just maybe not then. I can't remember. They were just coming into, the big bricks. Yeah. So the house phone goes, and it's a Scottish accent saying it's Kenny Dalglish. So there'd been a little bit of speculation. Being manager of Newcastle, I told him where to go.
In no uncertain terms?
Yeah, because I thought it was one of the lads having a wind-up. Put the phone down. Phone goes again, same again. Told him where, phone down, done. Not even thought didn't for 1 second think nothing more of it. Nothing. Just thought, not entertaining that. Next day, similar time, evening time, phone goes again. Ends up being Kenny, saying, do you want to go Newcastle? Now, obviously at that point, it's like apology mode, isn't it? My idol, I've just disrespected, which he laughed about and understood. And he was telling me I wanted me at Newcastle, but Crewe weren't entertaining the fee. It was middle of the season. So I'd have to go in. I spoke to Dario, cut a long story short. He told me I wasn't going. The fee wasn't big enough. And actually Liverpool wanted me at the end of the season. So all of a sudden, I've gone from being a lower league player, enjoying my football, to having a phone call with Kenny Dalglish, thinking Newcastle want me, to then Liverpool wanted me as well. My world changed. And then, of course, later when I got to meet Kenny when I was at Liverpool, he said to me, "You made the right decision." And I was like, "I know." But he was always warm-natured, great humour, always had a smile. The thing with Kenny, when you're in his presence, You never know when he's joking or being serious. And because you've got so much respect for him, you don't want to automatically assume something he said is humorous if he was being serious. So there was always that nervousness with me, and still would be when I see Kenny.